All right. Greg, give me a thumbs up. You can hear me? Good. Those of you that have been tuning in the last few weeks would have seen me having a tantrum, and I promised I would get it right this week. I think I still had a little bit of a glitch there, but I'm not going to be getting too upset, and I think it's better than we've done many other weeks. We are, of course, for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, I'm coming to you live from my house, hence why it's a little bit clunky, not quite as smooth as always. I have been going really casual the last few weeks. I still haven't got my full suit on, but I thought a few people, in fact, more than a few of you, I had hundreds of people letting me know that they thought I was a disgrace. Am I taking this job seriously? And, you know, can I actually dress appropriately? So I've done that. I've put my suit on. Well, not quite. I've at least put on a shirt and I'm ready to get into it. So what I'm going to do is just bring up slides and get straight stuck into it. All right, so before we get into it, what I want to know from everyone there, particularly those of you that it's your first time, you know, what's more important? Is it information or knowledge? So, you know, this really is going to set the tone for today's session. So if you are a first-time listener, you've jumped onto Facebook, even if you don't follow us, you've perhaps found this by chance, let us know in the comments. If you're on Zoom, drop it in the chat, put it in the Q&A, wherever you like. What is more important, information or knowledge? So which one do you think is going to win the day? So the answer is knowledge. Now, it's really important concept that you understand. Information is just organized data about something, whereas knowledge, on the other hand, is an understanding through experience and or education. And so very much, it is not just information in itself, which is powerful. It's the knowledge about that information to understand it so that you can create something that you can act upon and actually make those decisions in the future when you see certain factors happening. So I want to tell you a time, you know, it was probably going back about 15 or so years ago. You know, I was a little bit younger. I don't think I had quite the same gray hair, probably just as handsome as I am now. But, you know, I was there. I had just brought in some new investors to invest in my business. I was really excited. They were coming all the way from Japan, and I was really excited to organize a tour to take them around, show them all of the potential opportunities we had to invest in together, and really show them to who I thought were the brightest and most important people around the countryside. We were going Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, a 3-day tour. Organized, took them around. I had the top research analysts from the big real estate agencies, realestate.com, CoreLogic, everyone, do a special presentation for them. So they probably had 5 or 6 of the smartest and brightest economists around the countryside, tell them all about what was going on in the Australian economy and more specifically the Australian property market. They seem to be lapping it up. Those of you who know Japanese, they don't give you a lot of feedback. You know, they're very polite group of people, and I thought this could not be going better. Boy, was I wrong. So they left, and there was a few left over that were staying for 1 extra day. And we were sitting around at the end of that day in the office, and we had a bit of a drink and some crackers and so forth just to finish off the day. And they were all asking me that they wanted to know what did I think, and most importantly, Bondi Beach. So of course, being my hometown, I organised to take them for a surf at Bondi the next day. But what they told me was that this was probably one of the worst tours they'd ever been on. And what they said to me is, we don't care what other people think. We're investing in you. We want to know what do you think and what's important, because ultimately it's your understanding of all of this information and data out there and your knowledge about it that we're investing in and we're following, and we need to know what do you think. So I spent about half an hour and I told them exactly what I thought, what was going to do. And they said, you know what? We didn't need to be here for 3 days. That is all we wanted to hear, and that is what you needed to do. And so from that day forward, I learned a very important lesson, that information in itself is not what's important, as I said to you. There is no point in spewing out any facts if you don't understand what it means, and most importantly, what you should be doing with that information. So with that in mind, that's what today's session is all about. It is called question time, and it is for you to ask questions. Now, to make it easy for you, I've broken this session down into two distinct parts. The first phase is what I call the information stage. I am going to throw a huge number of statistics at you. I'm going to let you know what's been going on around the countryside. And that will go for somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes. Then we'll move on to the big chunk of the section, the question portion of the section, or as we like to know, the knowledge part. That's where we will answer all of your questions. So drop them in the Q&A now if you want to get involved early on. If you're on Facebook, unfortunately, we can't take them live, but we will come back to you. And that'll go for about 25 minutes or so. We do tend to go a little bit longer when we're in lockdown because we do get much higher participation rates. Thank you very much, of course, all of you that are on the line today. We love seeing so many familiar names as well as new faces. I'd like to think it's because you get value out of this. Some people said to me, no, I'm just bored. I've finished everything on Netflix, everything on Stan, everything on Foxtel, and you're about as boring as it gets, but at least you talk for a good hour. So thank you anyway for joining us. We will go through that, and then I'll close out and let you know the next logical steps that I believe you should be taking in today's market. Now, before we move on to that, just remember, listen to the information, think about it, and then work out how are you going to translate it into knowledge for yourself. Warren Buffett, those of you that don't know him must be living under a rock, legendary investor, and he sums it up here in 9 words. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. So that is having the information, but not being able to turn it into knowledge. So just remember that throughout today's session. All right, so this is it. This is the information portion. We're going to go for about 5 minutes. It'll be short, it'll be sharp. What do we see happening around the countryside? A couple of themes that came out. Auction clearance rates, I'm going to run through in a moment. They have been at their lowest level since April. Does that mean that Armageddon's coming? It's a disaster? I don't know. ANZ, they're predicting 20% house price increases. They've increased their forecast once again. This time last year, they were decreasing them. What does that mean for you? Post-Delta market. I'm sick of hearing Delta, Delta, Delta. What should you be doing? We're going to have a chat about that in detail. Pets in apartments. You would have never thought this day would come, but there is now law in New South Wales. And downsizing. Really, really interesting concept. I'm going to go through in detail, take all your questions and also give you some tips if you are thinking about downsizing. Or sometimes also we call that right sizing because it doesn't always have to be that, that you're getting older and moving through that phase. It can be just when you're thinking of moving to your next home. Okay, auction results. Let's get stuck into it. This is what we saw last weekend. Now, I'm going to zoom in because a number you've all been looking for, 55%. That is the lowest auction clearance rate we've had here nationally since April last year, just as the coronavirus was kicking off. Now, void of understanding it, this is a classic where the information is not going to give you the knowledge. For most people, you'd be fair if you said, uh-oh, we're in for trouble if we're only just getting over 50% auction clearance rate. And ordinarily, you'd be right. But what you need to know is you need to understand the data behind that. So let me break it down for you quickly. You can see here, Melbourne accounted for over 50% of the total auctions that occurred. Now, those of you know, Melbourne, total lockdown. We're not allowed to move. We're not allowed to look at each other. We're not allowed to think. Sydney, pretty much the same. The rest of the states are okay, but you can see from these numbers, they barely make up any of the auction numbers that we've seen. Now, it's very much a difference in a tale of two cities. So obviously Melbourne had almost double the number of listings up for auction on the weekend as Sydney did. But Sydney, you're allowed to inspect those properties. Melbourne, you are not. If you go out of your house, you even think about going and inspecting somewhere else, Premier Dan Andrews, he will catch you and he'll lock you up. No, that's just a joke. But we're not allowed to inspect. So despite what perhaps a lot of people are reading and hearing, that people are buying houses sight unseen, they're going on a FaceTime call and they're happily just making that big investment. That's not happening. It's not reality. For most of you, you'll know that this is the biggest single investment that you will ever make. And you want to go and touch it, feel it, see it, get an understanding for it, walk around it, because that is why we love real estate and property so much. and why people often struggle with shares as an alternative, because you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it. And that's what's been taken away here. So why is that important? Well, these numbers here that you're seeing in terms of the total number of auctions. So we've seen almost 1,200 auctions were scheduled for last weekend. Obviously, this all occurred weeks and weeks ago, before we knew that we were going to be in this never-ending lockdown. So this number here of results, 819, in there includes about 600 odd auctions that were pulled, i.e. people said, we're not going to be able to have an on-site auction. We haven't finished our auction campaign. We're going to pull the auction. We're going to wait until we get back out and have another go. So they all go through as a result, because they were scheduled for that weekend and not as a cleared auction. So that's obviously what's skewing this number here. So that's why I say it's really, really important that you understand and have the knowledge behind these numbers, because whilst on the face of it doesn't look good, rest assured, my friends, there is nothing to worry about here. It is purely a forced factor of the fact that here in Melbourne, we are not allowed to go and inspect any properties. For those of you tuning in from another state, will be shocked by that. You may not have realised that. Yes, it is very tough. And for all of us here, we are suffering big time. I know everyone's talking about their mental health is suffering big time by not being able to get out and work. But hopefully there will be some light at the end of the tunnel. 2022 is not that far away. All right, so let's move forward into some forward-looking statistics we've got here. This is an index produced by realestate.com. They are the largest listing portal here in Australia, and they produce what they call a buy index and a rent index. Really, really simple index. They collate all of that information and all those touch points they have on their website with all of their listings, and they rank them depending on whether they believe you're an engaged and focused buyer, and then they create this index. Now, this is based on the average demand that they believe that there was in 2019, and they compare where it is. So you can see it's sitting down here and it's above. So both nationally and in our local market here in Victoria, it's significantly higher than where it was in 2019. You can see it's been pretty steady for the last 6 months or so. Higher, we're obviously getting a spread between the red line, which is apartments, are seeing more demand on their site than houses. Typically, this is probably what we're seeing on this is then translating into sales circa in 6 months' time. Why hasn't it moved? Where's it going? What can we think? Well, as I mentioned before, Victoria, if you have a look here, is probably going on a slightly different trajectory, definitively coming down in the last month or so. And that, as I said, is being purely driven by the fact that if people are saying, I'm not allowed to inspect, I can't have an on-site auction, people pulling their properties from the market, people are saying, what's the point in me being on the internet having a look around? I wouldn't read too much into it, other than to say you can see here nationally the demand is significantly higher than it was in 2019 when Corona wasn't even heard about. And we expect to see once we get through these lockdowns. I think, there was more good news again this morning. I believe that we found some more Pfizer vaccines. So, there is an end in sight. And I think that people are going to continue to push through. And if you haven't thought about it, that is a really good question to ask us in the next section as to where we think things might go and what you should be doing in this quiet period. All right, so rental index, exactly the same concept, but this is in terms of listings for rent. This one's probably a little bit harder to read, obviously nowhere near as big a commitment. And definitely I can tell you that we have been seeing in the rental market still a fairly high level of turnover in terms of listings being leased and then have to be released as tenants come out because they only stay for 6 months. And that's why I think we can still see a fair bit of activity occurring, albeit we know that students are gone, overseas migration is gone, and generally people that work and live and play within the city, as their jobs have been shuttered and the industry is shuttered, they've moved back out to the regions or back with mum and dad. That will change and there will be a big influx and things are going to go gangbusters here in Melbourne and particularly Sydney, where the largest rental markets are. That is the local market here in Victoria, obviously different again, but you can see the same sort of trend is following through. All right, that's it. I told you to be short and sharp. Think about what questions you want to ask. Start putting them in the Q&A. Those of you that didn't catch the start, my name is James Maitland. I'm the General Manager here at Salvo. I've helped create more than 11,500 homes for people just like you on the line today. I've been doing this for more than 20 years. That's why I've got all the grey. Haven't been able to go to a hairdresser, so it's probably looking 3 times as bad as normal. Today on the panel, we're joined by Greg Arbeck, Jack Gian, and Lucas Karras. These guys have been doing it for decades and decades as well. Wealth of experience. They'll be answering all of your questions. So make sure you get them in and get ready. So if you haven't done this before, how do you ask a question on Zoom? Well, I can tell by the number of questions I see popping up on my screen down here that it doesn't seem to be a problem. If you're not sure, there's 2 methods. You can raise your hand and you can talk live, or you can drop it in the Q&A and we'll answer that if we can. If we don't get to your questions, we will get to you at the end. We'll hang around, or alternatively, we'll reach out to you post this. So feel free to ask your questions anonymously. We do prefer if you do answer them with your details there. So if we don't get to it, we can reach out to you and see if we can help you with an answer to your question after the session. That's it. We're now moving into what I said would be the second stage. As I said, we'll run for about 25 minutes or so. We're obviously going to run a bit past time again, as always. So I'm going to stop talking and start reading your questions. Before I do that, I want to know, pets, Greg, I know I've seen before your cat wandering around in the background. What's happened? There's a new law. Where is it? And what does it mean?
Well, first of all, interesting statistic. I know you talk about knowledge and just statistics. Australians are one of the highest people that have pets at home. So it's quite an interesting one that as a result of that, and as a result of all these lockdowns and stuff, it's now law in New South Wales that you're allowed to have a pet. Beforehand in apartments and things like that, it was against you couldn't do it, and things have changed dramatically.
So are we expecting to see the rest of the country follow suit? Obviously, for anyone living in New South Wales, a pet lover, as you said, these high rates, would be loving that now that they can't be banned by their landlord. But are we going to see it move across the rest of the country?
I believe so, James. I mean, it is one of those things. People love the animals. I've got mine sitting right here. So she's everywhere I go, she's there. She keeps you company. And I think that's a general thing now. People do have pets, and I think it's going to follow suit right through to the other states as well. So in my opinion, very good thing.
All right, good. Well, those of you that have got pets will welcome that news. Obviously, remember, it is only law in New South Wales at the moment. But as Greg said, I think the rest of the states will follow suit. As to how quickly, I'm not sure. If you are a landlord, I think, and you don't like pets, well, the change is coming. So perhaps prepare yourself for it. And I think, as Greg said, people have become more and more used to it and understanding, and pretty much everyone has a pet now these days. I know particularly those of you with school-age children will know that is the craze everyone has been doing over the last 18 months, is buying a pet during lockdown. And then little old dad gets left to walk it, feed it, clean it, bathe it, do whatever it is as the kids go back to school and get on with normal life. Greg has got a menagerie of animals there. He's shown you just one cat, but he did live on a farm before with every kind of animal you can imagine.
Horses, pigs, you name it. So that's
yes,
it.
Exactly. And we're not talking about when he was back in South Africa either. All right. So downsizing. I mentioned it at the start. I've seen a few people asking questions here. Now, downsizing is typically what we refer to when people have a home in the suburbs, usually a freestanding home. They've had a number of kids. They've all now grown up and moved out of home. Mum and dad are then starting to think, well, I've got this big house, 3-4 bedrooms. There's only 2 of us. There's all the maintenance, all the cleaning. Do I really need this? Do I want to be spending my spare time, maintaining the home, cleaning it, or could I be spending that with my kids and then hopefully in the future my grandkids? And that's typically what we refer to as a downsizer. But I think it's probably more something that we refer to it more and more about right sizing, or at least people just as they're moving to the next home should be thinking about some things. So, Jack, I know you and I were chatting about this before, and I'm sure everyone would like to hear as to what you can sort of, give some overview about it, and perhaps if you've got it, a few tips to people that are thinking about downsizing or right sizing either now or in the future as to what they can do to prepare themselves, and also what might be the best options for them moving forward with that decision.
Yes, James, you're right. Doesn't matter if people they're looking for downsizing and they're looking for the next new home. So they're quite, the few things I think they need to considering. So I'm learning from the Lucas. I'm giving some tips this time.
All right, good. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, hit us with tip number one.
Okay, so the tip number one is first, it's very important understanding how much is my home worth. So regardless if you are downsizing or you're looking for your next home, and perhaps you don't want to having the new mortgage, or some of them, if they downsize, they cannot be able to secure a new mortgage because most of them, like you said, they almost retired, they have already retired. So this has become more important to understand how much of your current home worth. So
what's the best way to do that quickly and easily then?
Yes, our suggestion is contact your experienced local agent and to getting the appraisal from your experienced local agent. So this will be the best indication on the price of the property could achieve on the current market. Not only that, by connecting your local agent, experienced local agent, when it comes to selling your property, the local agent might give you the best strategy of the selling, and even they will be able to connect it with you about any new property which might suit for you will coming into the market.
Right. So effectively what you're saying, Jack, is use this to not only get an idea as to what your current home is worth, so that you know how much you've got to spend on your next home, but also work out the best time to sell, as well as giving that signal to your local agent that you're in the market to buy. So as they get any new listings, you can be the first one to jump on, which I guess that's particularly important right now when we've got more buyers than there are sellers, and prices are skyrocketing if you can get in there first.
Yes, that's 100% right.
All right, give us tip number two.
The tips number two is what type of the property should I choose from? So generally,
apartments.
Yes, I won't say that. So generally speaking, maybe for the downsizer, they normally looking for three types of the property. The first one might be the smaller single-story home. The second one might be the townhouse. The third one, apartments. What we're saying, like the most suitable property will really depends on what is your life stage and what is your priority. Let me give you an example. If you're moving from the big block of the land of the family home, you enjoy the bit of the garden, and in your next home, you still wanted a bit of the garden. Maybe you're considering like the small townhouse with the small bit of the garden. And also, I'll be realized because I've been talking with many of the downsizer, I think the mobility becomes a big issue for them currently. So if you can't having the stair in your home, I think maybe the modern design and the fully equipped and fully access lift of the apartment building could be the perfect option for you.
All right, tip number three.
Yeah, tip number three is some people ask me, do I have to buy the smaller home? Actually not. So we, like you said, and we have a misunderstanding that downsize actually is not a means we have to buy the home which is smaller. Actually, the lot of the downsizer homeowner, they're actually looking the similar size of the property, but there's less maintenance. For example, the land might be smaller, but the property on the land might be not smaller, especially for the newer building home, because they all have the better design. And of course, they have a much less maintenance, and it's unlikely to be need to renovate it in the next 10 or 20 years. So this is, we could call the right sizing, not the downsizing. So
I think that's a really good point, Jack, because we always use the word downsizing, but like you said, right sizing is perhaps a better use of the word. And as you said, new stuff, modern design, modern technology means that you can live with effectively more in less. We always hear about people saying, oh my God, I could never live in a place that small. And then they get in and find all the mod cons and the design and the clever storage and the way that it's all laid out in the open plan means that they can actually live in a smaller square meterage of an area they thought they could, but actually feel like they're living in an even bigger space.
Yes, that will always suggest that if you'll be able to put some extra money for your next home, maybe that's another great option for you. So this is the third tips. I'm giving you the first tips is, can I rent before I buy? The answer is yes. Actually, if you move into the new area, renting is the good way to help you to try the new area, to understanding the location before you buy in that new area. And also, for those people, maybe they used to live in like a big block of the family home. Now the downsizer to the townhouse or the smaller apartments, renting will be the test of the different living style until they really understanding, okay, this is my new living style, and now I can work it out what I really need to do. So in that case, we encourage people to renting and before they buy, just to getting understand everything is gonna new, it's gonna change, and are used to that.
Good one. All right, hit us with the last tip.
The last tip is, should I buy or sell first? Okay, this is the most common question I've been asking for many of the downsizers or the people they're looking to buy the next home. Let's say if you're selling first, yes, you could have the certain of the budget, which for your next purchase. However, it could be cause a problem, especially with the surgery market, which will cause maybe the devalue your sale, and you might lose your money of your selling of your property. So what we suggest on how you're doing, prepare your property for quick sale with a realistic expectation on the price. And then now buying first, and maybe request the flexible or long settlement period if possible. So that's the best way. Of course, just in case if you're able to do that, make sure you have a backup plan to be able to hold in the two properties at the same time, and such as maybe you have like ready for your bridging finance, or maybe have some extra money just in case. So that's the few tips and a suggestion we give you the people whenever you want to downsize of your property or you're looking to buy your new home.
Right, sound advice, Jack. Thanks for that. While Jack's been running through that, I've been seeing a ton of questions here. I thought I did a great job explaining the auction results, but I've just seen another one pop up here now from Susan saying, can you explain a bit more why those results aren't so bad? What does it mean? Been plenty of those. Obviously, I didn't do a great job. Anyone else want to have a go at explaining a little bit more to all of our listeners about the auction results, what it means, and where things are going?
Yeah, sure, James. I'd like to shed a bit of light there. Look, as you mentioned, Melbourne sort of brought down the auction results. And for those that don't live in Melbourne, don't realize that we are in a very strict lockdown. There's absolutely no inspections. It's very logical to expect a person that's going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not million plus, to purchase a property, to do without even seeing the property. Okay, this is the most single biggest purchase of the life. So even photographers cannot get access into the property to take a photograph for marketing purposes. And as I always say, you can't sell a secret.
I like it. So Delta, we love talking about it. I'm sick of hearing it. I liked it when it was just a singer. As a virus, it's a little bit annoying, and we're tired of it. But with us all being stuck at home, what's actually happened in general across the country with our property markets? Then, it's not just auction results, I guess, and sellers that are struggling, but buyers are perhaps struggling as well, are they?
Yeah, look, and I mean, this is the thing. What you have to understand, what our listeners have to understand, what our experts are telling us. First of all, that once restrictions ease, the market is going to bounce back stronger than ever before. And we saw it recently last year, what did happen with Melbourne after the last lockdown. We still have a lot of Australians returning home, and many more move each year due to family or accessibility reasons. That we've got the financial strains that some people are faced with, that they can move, free up some equity they've got. And once the market opens up, you also got the foreigners that are going to come in. So having said that, it's what I call the perfect storm is brewing, and it's not time for sellers or buyers to sit at home and do nothing. They do have to think what to do post-Delta market.
All right, I feel it coming. I feel there's tips here for people and some advice. So perhaps make it easy. Can we segment it out? Can you perhaps give us some tips for those people that are sellers?
Okay, sorry, Jack. I have to give the tips. Okay, so for the sellers, make sure you have all your legal documents ready. So to take advantage, once the restrictions are lifted, straight away to offer your property to the market. Because some of these legal documents can take 2, 3, 4 weeks to obtain, some of the certificates. Tip number 2, it is a perfect time to organize an interior designer. So do some research, speak to a few designers over the phone. Again, get them ready once restrictions are lifted and they can come into your property to make sure they present your property at the best it can be presented. Number 3, organize tradespeople to be ready in case repairs or any improvements in your property are needed. And number 4, try to have a date in mind. And what I'm saying by that, try to avoid the grand final weekend or school holidays. Both buyers and sellers should be prepared to conduct transactions closer to Christmas and even into the quieter, traditionally summer period.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I know we were having that discussion with our wider sales team just the other week, before we found out the lockdown here in Melbourne just the other day is getting extended again. And as Lucas said, you were counting out, right, if we get out of lockdown at the end of this week, we want to run a 4-week campaign. Where does that take us? It gets us past the grand final, but it sort of gets us right into that spring racing period, Melbourne Cup period as well. And really it becomes that struggle. So as Lucas said, I think it's really, really important to work out the right date you want to have that auction occur and when you want the sale to conclude, then work your way backwards. And that'll give you an idea when you need to be able to start. And obviously you can fine tune that as and when things change. All right, let's change gear. What about buyers? For everyone who's a buyer on the line today, what should they be doing or what can they be doing during this Delta lockdown period?
First of all, this is a great opportunity to do the research in the area that you want to buy. Second of all, make sure you have your finance in place with your deposit ready to go, get your pre-approvals, get everything, because once the market opens, you want to get out there and take advantage. And thirdly, and this is quite an important one, I feel, that a lot of people sort of don't think about, is this is a great opportunity, a great time to create close relationships with the agents in the area that you're looking at buying. Sign up in database emails and to get updates as well, because they're going to be the people that are going to help you get to your dream home when the time is right.
All right, good. I mean, I think that, as Jack mentioned before as well, that's a really important one, particularly in times when there is more buyers than stock. We all do it. People you like, people that are nice, people that become your friends. What do we all want to do? We all want to help our friends. So don't be the unknown name on there. As Lucas said, reach out, connect with your local agent in the area or wherever you're looking to buy. Make sure you're top of mind. So when they do get those listings, they can let you know, as well as, potentially even whilst we don't recommend, buying sight unseen, potentially they can take you through a virtual tour if the property's vacant. So you've already got a feel for it to be able to know, yeah, I think that's something I definitely want to go and see when it is available again. All right. I mentioned at the top of today's session about ANZ's forecast for 20% price increase here in Victoria. We just saw CoreLogic stats. We haven't studied them yet, so we're not going to go through in detail in today's session. We will do that next week for anyone who had questions about it. But I think Melbourne came in at about 13 or 14% for the year-to-date growth. ANZ's predicting we should see 20%. In fact, I think across the country, pretty much we're seeing 20%. Why, Greg, are we seeing them increasing their forecast when all we saw this time last year was downgrade, downgrade, downgrade? Armageddon was coming. We've got Delta. Apparently, Delta is the worst thing we've ever seen. We're in lockdowns. New South Wales is actually in lockdown. If you remember last year, they were the golden child, couldn't get a thing wrong. Why are people saying that prices are going up, not down this time around?
Well, the banks are typically conservative, so it's very interesting that they are forecasting these increases as well. So when you talk about that, Melbourne, they're still saying 20%. NAB are sort of echoing around those levels as well. But the key things that are driving that are the stuff. Firstly, is a little bit more certainty with regard to the impact of the pandemic. So during this time last year, there was still a lot of uncertainty of what will happen. At least we know we're going to get locked up, so we've got certainty. So things are a bit more. There's a bit more less uncertainty. So
you're saying from adversity comes positivity.
Correct.
We know we're locked up. We know what we've got to do. We know and get jabbed and get that 70, 80% threshold. That perhaps is not as bad as the never-ending lockdown we're in last year.
So there is an end in sight. There's still more, demand. Buyers are out there looking for properties, less stock, interest rates are low. All these particular things are still driving demand. So you've got a bit more certainty with regard to how the pandemic will sort of pan out. We've still got low interest rates. We've still got demand. So the banks are going, they can't see why that's actually going to push the market even harder.
All right, that was good. I'm just conscious of time, so we might wrap it up there, and I'll make a few closing comments and suggest to you what I think you should be doing to move forward in here. But there's a lot of great information there. If you've got more questions, we will hang around at the end and answer them for you, or drop them in the Q&A, or reach out to us separately, and we'd love to go through with you. So just think about what the guys went through, all the questions that you asked, breaking down that information, understanding it. You can see, despite what you might be seeing if you read on the front page, lowest auction clearance rate in 18 months, versus ANZ predicting that house prices are going to be going up more than 20% this year, downsizing, right-sizing, Delta, pet laws, everything out there. You need to be able to absorb that information like a sponge, understand what it means, and then put it into practical application for yourself. So hopefully we've given you a bit of a framework. We've run through that. If you've got more questions, we can obviously happy to run through it with you one-on-one, or of course we will be here again same time next week. So where to from here? As I opened with it, I said we would go through the information section, we'd go through the knowledge, and that was great, and I hope that you got value out of it. For those of you that participated and asked questions, thank you very much. You made it what it was today. And it's great that we hopefully have been able to help you. But for most of you, you didn't ask a question. Maybe you're quiet. Maybe you're playing with your pet, like Greg mentioned, and you didn't get value out of today. Well, where do most people go? Well, let me tell you, they tend to follow this step, and that is do nothing. So whether you're a buyer, a seller, a renter, or an investor, it does not matter, where you are on that spectrum. There was something you could have got out of today's session, and that is about the concept of knowledge. Putting that into practice for you, knowing how to work that system to your advantage so you can make the most out of your single biggest asset in your home. If you don't make any changes, don't expect to get a different result. So for all of you that are going to say, today's great, but I'm going to do nothing about it, I'm going to continue doing what I've always been doing, well, don't expect to get a different result. Those of you that are looking to make a change, move forward, understood that concept of knowledge, go out there, do what we've talked about, understand it, go through all that information, and take those actions when you see those signs appearing. Do that at a bare minimum. We've given you the framework, and I hope you do that. But what I really, really hope that you will do is you do it with us. So that's the alternative path. Now, for most people, you might say, I don't think it's suitable. No, I'm at the wrong stage. Well, it doesn't matter, as I said, whether you're just looking to rent your first property ever, right up to buying your next home, your first home, or you might even be buying your first, second, third, fourth, or fifth investment property. It doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum of home buying. We can help you across the myriad of businesses we've got. We've obviously got a ton of different businesses, all focused around that single goal of helping you create a home. So I'd really, really love that you do that. And that's the most active and involved way that we can help you through that journey. Now, the actionable knowledge method, it's not for everyone, all right? If you've joined today's session, then it probably is going to be for you. But let me just run through a few key things, because we really want to focus on the people that will be a right fit for us, and that we can help. And you've got to be prepared to do it. So, it's for people that are prepared to take that action, take those steps, and are motivated to make changes. You've got to understand the concepts of what I'm talking about. We, of course, will guide you. We've got a ton of help that we can give you along that journey, but you want to be prepared to actually understand it so that you can make those actions, take those steps yourself. And most importantly, you've got to be prepared to put in the time and effort. Now, not a lot of effort we're asking for. That's why we're suggesting you come and do it with us. If you want to go and do it yourself, it's going to take a lot more effort. That might work for some of you. For a lot of you, you always need to have an expert by your side that can help guide you through that process, whether it be refinancing your home, buying your first home, getting a tenant for your investment property, whatever it is. Always great to have an expert by your side to give you that guidance, but you've got to still be prepared to actually do that work and take those steps that go through. So if that sounds like you, then this is definitely the next step for you. Now, I've thought long and hard about this. Lots and lots of different things that we could say is the next logical step for you. But like most of you, we're all pressed for time. We're all skeptical about different things. So the smallest possible commitment I can see you possibly making is I'm asking you for 15 minutes of your time. Now, with that 15 minutes, I believe you can actually get a realistic outcome. So what I suggest we do is we meet one-on-one. Now, when I say one-on-one, obviously we can't do that right now through lockdown. We'd love to meet with you face-to-face, but we can use technology like Zoom, FaceTime, or just the old Henry Bell telephone. It doesn't matter how it is. Let's get together. Let's have a one-on-one chat, better understand where you are, what phase in that spectrum you are on that ladder, as I said, through your home ownership journey. What are your goals? What have you failed? What have you succeeded with? And then really see if you're a good fit for us and if we can help you. Now, we can't help everyone, and we'll be the first to tell you that we don't think that we can help you. But I'm pretty sure for most of you on today's line, we can help you achieve more, get to that goal faster. Will you be able to do it without us? 100%. For most of you, you can. But ultimately, what it is, it's about being able to move forward faster, achieve that goal quicker, and particularly when we're talking about an appreciating asset, as you know, an extra time in the market is more important than time in the market. So the quicker that you can make those decisive actions, get involved, move forward in that next step, the better place you will be. So I really, really recommend that this is the best possible thing you can do with 15 to 20 minutes of your time and still expect to really be able to move forward and get an outcome from. So if that does sound like you, how do you do it? Really, really simple. There's 3 ways you can do it. If you're live with us on Zoom now, there's a link in the chat. You can jump on and do that. When you join this Zoom meeting, your web browser would have been redirected to that booking page. You can jump on and book there. For those of you that did register, or if you're on Facebook, we will email around post this session a link there that you can do it. If you're on Facebook, jump, I think, into our bio. There's a link to do it, or it's on our website, jump on, or just send us a quick email or put it in a comment and we'll send you a link so you can book one of these sessions. I have dedicated this time specifically for this. So those of you that are worried, it's all talk and I'll never be able to find a time. I've set aside time specifically in everyone's diaries just for these sessions. So jump on, do it, don't delay, because I guarantee you will get a realistic result out of it. So let's say you don't think it's right for you. Well, I want to just tell you a little story about what I did a couple of months ago. I think it was early July. I went to Hamilton Island. This is a photo I took. This is my 13, 12, 13. I think she's about to turn 13-year-old daughter. And we had a great time when we went there. We got away for 4 days, albeit when we arrived back here in Melbourne, we managed to go straight into lockdown the very next day. However, while we were there, we're having a great time. And Isabella said to me, "Dad, I'd love to walk to the top of this mountain and watch the sunrise. You know, I think that'd be a great thing to do. I said, sounds fantastic, Isabella. Let's get up early in the morning and go and do it. However, that night, I had a look on my phone to work out what time does the sun rise. And to my surprise, it rised at 4:47. Now, most of you know one of the joys about going on holiday is being able to sleep in. And we all love that once our kids get a little bit older, they also like to sleep in. So I wasn't really too excited about doing that. And I was about to say to her, you know what, maybe let's do it another time, or let's watch the sunset because I want to sleep in. But I didn't, because I thought, no, she's really excited. Let me set my alarm and do it. So I grabbed my iPhone, set my alarm and put it there. What felt like about 10 minutes later, it was probably 6 or 7 hours later, you know, that annoying alarm sound that comes with your iPhone all the time. First thing I did, I picked it up, I saw that big snooze button, I hit snooze and I rolled over. That was easy. You know, we've all done it and you know how easy it is. Apple make it really, really easy to be able to do it. And that was it. A few minutes later, I realized what I'd done. I said, no, she's excited. I can't just stop taking the action that I need to do. I told her I'd do it. So we got up, we jumped up, we got dressed, we ran to the top of this mountain. We made it just before the sunrise. It's a beautiful spot. We had a great time. It was a magic moment that I spent with my daughter. And it's a great memory that she and I will always remember for the rest of our lives. The reason I told you that story is you all know how easy it is to hit the snooze button, to put something off, to not take that action and not do it. Now, I don't want you to do that. I want you to be able to move forward because I know that there's more in you. I know that you can achieve more. And I know with a little bit of guidance and help, we can be the one that help you to achieve those goals. So, you know, think about what I did. Think about those times in life when you've actually taken that decisive action. You haven't hit the snooze button. You've created those memories. You've had that experience. You've achieved that goal. And do that today. So don't delay. Jump on, book one of those meetings because I guarantee you it's the people that are prepared to take decisive action that don't hit the snooze button that will get the results, and they'll be the ones that will be the envy of you and all of your friends. If you remember, there's a link in the chat. You can do it on your web browser or I'll send you an email with that. Now, that is it for today's session. I know we've gone a bit over time, so thank you very much for sticking with us. As always, we've really, really enjoyed this session. Those of you that are first-time listeners, thank you for joining us. Those of you that have been here, and I know a lot of those familiar names and faces, thank you very much for your support throughout the session. So from me and all of the panel, thank you very much for your time. Remember, we will be here again, rain, hail or shine, every single Wednesday, 2:30. It looks like you'll be having me from my home for the foreseeable future. Hopefully one day we'll be back in the office. I'll have a helper and we'll be even more seamless and bring you more exciting transitions as we can. But for now, thank you very much and look forward to seeing you guys again next week, next month, or next quarter.